I never imagined my life would unravel so completely in a single day, but that's how quickly everything spiraled into chaos, leaving me breathless and disoriented. It all started on a typical snowy morning, with the world wrapped in a white blanket, where my husband, Tam, and I were on our way to drop our daughter off at school, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. The car skidded on an icy patch, and in an instant everything turned black. I woke up in a hospital room, my body broken and my mind racing, the world outside a blur of white and pain. As I lay there, sedated and unaware, I had no idea that Tam was grappling with a truth so horrific it would shatter our lives forever, a truth that would turn love into betrayal. The night before, my best friend had coaxed me into a night out, her laughter masking the cracks in my marriage, assuring me that a few drinks would help me forget the pressures of motherhood and marriage. But what Tam didn't know was that I wasn't just catching up with a friend. I was with someone else, a man I had been seeing behind his back for far too long, our moments filled with a passion that felt intoxicating, yet wrong. When Tam came to pick me up, I can only imagine the horror that consumed him as he walked in on me in bed with my lover, the betrayal hanging thick in the air like a miasma of despair. In that moment, my carefully constructed facade crumbled, the devoted wife and mother I pretended to be unraveled before my eyes, leaving me exposed and terrified. Tam's face twisted in confusion and rage, his voice a mix of disbelief and heartbreak as he shouted, "You've been lying to me all this time?" Each word puncturing my heart like a dagger. I wanted to scream that I was sorry, that I had reasons buried beneath layers of insecurity, but the truth was, I had betrayed him in ways I could never justify, and the weight of that realization crushed me. To make matters worse, our little girl Emma wasn't even biologically his. The truth burned in my throat, a bitter pill I had fed him for years, spiraling me deeper into guilt and shame. As I lay in that hospital bed, the sterile smell of antiseptic clinging to my skin, I could sense the shifting tides of my life. The walls closing in as I realized I had lost everything I held dear, including my own self. When I finally regained consciousness, a nurse's sympathetic eyes told me everything I needed to know. My world was in ruins, and I was the architect of my own destruction. Tam wasn't just hurt. He was furious, his love for me twisted into something unrecognizable, something dark and filled with betrayal that I could feel in the marrow of my bones. I tried to reach out to him, my voice weak and shaky. "Tam, please, let me explain," but the distance between us felt insurmountable, a chasm I had created with my lies. He turned away from me, his silence louder than any words, and in that moment, I knew our marriage was over, a truth that echoed in my mind like a death knell. The weight of my choices crashed down on me, suffocating me in layers of regret and shame. I had not only betrayed my husband, but also our child, and the enormity of that guilt felt like a noose tightening around my throat. The doctors came in, their clinical discussions about my injuries a dull hum in the background, but all I could think about was the wreckage I had left in my wake, a life shattered by my own hands. I replayed that night over and over in my head, the lies spilling out like poison, each revelation more damning than the last, and I was left drowning in a sea of remorse. When Tam finally spoke, his voice was cold, devoid of the warmth I had grown so accustomed to. "I can't even look at you right now," and it felt like a physical blow to my already fractured heart. Tears streamed down my face, hot and relentless, as I begged him to give me a chance to make things right. Knowing deep down I was grasping at straws, my words a feeble attempt to salvage the impossible. His eyes flickered with pain, and I could see the love we had shared slipping away, replaced by a cold, hard anger that felt like a chasm between us. I thought about Emma's innocent smile, how I had robbed her of a stable family, and that thought alone felt like a dagger to my heart, twisting deeper with every second. Tam's family arrived, their faces a mixture of shock and disappointment, their whispers floating around me like a noose tightening with every passing second, and I felt the weight of their judgment, every disapproving glance a reminder of my failures. I couldn't shake the image of my lover's face as I recalled the fleeting moments of passion we shared, now tinged with guilt that clawed at my insides, a cruel reminder of my choices. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I had been living a lie, and the truth of my actions was a burden I would bear forever, a shadow looming over my every breath. Tam's voice cut through my thoughts, I don't know how you could do this to us, to our family. Each word dripping with hurt, and it felt like acid on my skin, burning away whatever remained of my hope. I wanted to tell him it was never about him, that my infidelity stemmed from my own insecurities and fears, but it felt too late for explanations, too late for anything but the truth of my betrayal. The hospital room felt like a prison, each beep of the machines a reminder of my mistakes, of the life I'd shattered, and I could feel the walls closing in, suffocating me with regret. I tried to comfort Tam, to reach for his hand, but he recoiled as if my touch burned him, and it shattered whatever was left of my heart, leaving me raw and exposed. Days passed in a haze of doctors, nurses, and the incessant buzz of hospital life, but all I felt was isolation. It was as if I were trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Finally, when I was released, I was greeted by the sight of Tam packing his things, determination etched on his face, and my heart plummeted, realizing the finality of it all. My heart raced as I begged him to stay. Please, we can work through this together. But he shook his head, his eyes filled with sorrow that felt like a funeral dirge for our love. He looked like a man who had lost everything, and in a way he had. I had taken his trust, his love, and our family, and crushed them beneath my selfishness, and I felt the weight of that truth like an anchor pulling me down. The night before I had been reckless, but now I was left to pick up the pieces of a life that felt utterly foreign to me, a jigsaw puzzle missing too many vital pieces. Tam moved out, taking Emma with him, and I was left in an empty house echoing my regrets, the silence deafening and oppressive, a constant reminder of my failures. I felt the walls closing in, a suffocating reminder of my choices as I faced the reality of being alone and despised, an exile in my own life. I reached out to friends, hoping for support, but their conversations fell flat, often laced with judgment and pity, and I felt more isolated than ever. Every time I saw a mother with her child, a pang of jealousy shot through me, a reminder of the family I had destroyed, and that feeling twisted like a knife in my gut. The guilt clawed at me, a relentless beast demanding to be fed, and I found myself drowning in despair, unable to escape the prison of my own making. Tam filed for divorce, and the legal papers felt like a final nail in the coffin of our marriage, sealing my fate and leaving me gasping for breath. I fought to see Emma, but each visit was a reminder of my betrayal, her confusion laced with a hurt I had caused, and the sight of her innocent eyes filled me with a sorrow I couldn't articulate. I tried to explain to her that I loved her, but the words felt hollow. How could I love her when I had betrayed her father and shattered our family? Tam's family became my worst critics, their disapproval piercing through the fragile remnants of my self-esteem, and I felt like a pariah in a world that once embraced me. As my friends turned their backs, I found solace in online support groups. But even there, I felt like an outcast, a ghost haunting my own life. I spent my days in a fog, trying to piece together my life, but the fragments were sharp and painful, each memory a jagged reminder of my mistakes. I often replayed the moments leading up to that fateful night, trying to pinpoint where everything went wrong, but the answers eluded me like wisps of smoke. It was in those moments that I realized my choices had consequences, and I had to face them alone, a solitary figure in a world that had turned upside down. Tam's anger morphed into indifference, and I dreaded the moments when I had to face him in court. His eyes filled with a coldness that made my heart ache. The courtroom was a battleground with my heart on display, and every word spoken felt like a dagger to my soul, a reminder of the love I had squandered. I could see it in his eyes. He had loved me once, but now all that remained was a shell of what we had built together, a ghost town where love used to thrive. When the judge granted Tam full custody of Emma, my heart shattered into an unrecognizable mess, and I felt powerless, a victim of my own choices. I fought back tears, realizing that I had lost not just a husband but my child, the light of my life, all because of my own selfish decisions and the web of lies I had spun. In the months that followed, I tried to rebuild my life, but the pieces never fit quite right, and I felt like an imposter in my own skin, a stranger to myself. I moved into a small apartment, each room a reminder of the life I had let slip through my fingers, and I often sat in silence, haunted by the echoes of what was lost. I would catch glimpses of Tam and Emma in the park, their laughter echoing in my ears, a haunting melody of what could have been, and it felt like a knife twisting deeper in my heart. The loneliness seeped in, filling the void that once held love and warmth. I was surrounded by people yet felt utterly alone, drowning in a sea of my own making. I started therapy, hoping to understand my choices, but each session felt like digging a deeper hole into my own psyche, unearthing wounds I was not ready to confront. Weeks turned into months, and I still couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal that lingered in the air, suffocating me like a weight I couldn't lift. I had lost my best friend, my partner, and my family, and the weight of that loss was unbearable, a burden I carried with me like a shadow. I began to write, pouring my feelings onto paper, an attempt to make sense of the chaos that had become my life. Each word a cathartic release of pent-up pain. Each word felt like a step toward healing. But the pain of my actions continued to haunt me, a ghost I could never escape, lingering in the corners of my mind. Tam eventually moved on, and the thought of him with someone else felt like salt on an open wound, a reminder of the love that had slipped through my fingers. I wanted him to be happy, but the jealousy clawed at me, reminding me of my failures, the love I had squandered, and the life I had shattered. My friends tried to set me up on dates, but each time I felt hollow, as if I were trying to fill a void that could never be filled, a chasm left by my mistakes. I learned to navigate my new reality, but the scars of betrayal imprinted on my heart would never fully heal, a reminder of the person I had become. As the seasons changed, I found myself reflecting on the choices I had made, the paths I had taken, and where they had led me. A journey marked by regret. The guilt and shame became my companions, whispering reminders of the past. But I tried to silence them with self-compassion, clinging to the hope of redemption. One day, I caught Emma's gaze from across the street. Her smile was radiant, yet it broke my heart all over again, a bittersweet reminder of the love I had lost. I knew I had to let go, to forgive myself for the past, but it felt like an impossible task, a mountain too steep to climb, a burden too heavy to bear. The journey toward healing was long and arduous, filled with setbacks and moments of doubt, but I held on to hope like a lifeline in a stormy sea. I learned to embrace the pain, to use it as fuel for growth, and slowly I began to reclaim pieces of myself, learning to breathe again amidst the wreckage. I realized that life would never return to what it was, but perhaps, just perhaps, I could build something new from the ashes. A life worth living once more. In the end, my perfect life had crumbled in a day, but out of the wreckage, I began to find my own strength, one fragile step at a time, rising from the ruins of my own making. Thank you for watching. For more real stories and powerful dramas, be sure to like, subscribe, and explore our I Love You Too channel. If you enjoyed this video, please consider supporting us and transforming your love life with the Make Him Worship You program linked in the description. It's a game changer for any woman seeking the love she truly deserves.